Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for Pilates All Levels. My name is Audra, and we're going to use a ball as a prop today. If you don't have one, do you guys have yours? They are right over there. Feel free to grab them. And then if you're at home and you don't have a ball, that is okay. You can use a pillow folded a couple times, or you can just go without the prop if it doesn't feel right. Good morning. How you feeling, Ditta? Good. As always, listen to your body. Feel free to take breaks. Don't do anything that doesn't feel right or is contraindicated. We're going to begin on our back, knees bent, feet flat, and we're actually going to bring the ball underneath our sacrum. So allow it to be in between your cheeks. And allow your back to be in a nice, relaxed position. So if you tend to arch, see if you can sink it down. If you tend to tuck, see if you can just let your sits bones widen a little without arching. And bring one hand to your sternum and one hand to your low abs. And just big inhale and big exhale. And just see which one of your hands is moving more, right? So if your top hand, the one on your sternum, is moving really far, see if you can invite it to be a little quieter and allow your low hand to move a little more. With your hips elevated, we've taken the pressure from the floor off of our lower back. So I'd like you to try to invite the tissue of your low back to expand on your inhale. One more breath like this. And then we get to bring our hands to our hips. So just think about the sides of your hips or your hip bones. And now still expand three-dimensionally on your inhale. But on your exhale, think of your hip bones dragging together away from your hands. And then inhale, let everything expand wide. And then exhale, hug everything together. So on our inhale, our diaphragm and pelvic floor are lowering, our transverse abdominis is expanding. And on our exhale, we're gently drawing our ribs towards our belly button and our hip bones together. And hopefully that's helping you feel a nice deep abdominal connection without even having to move. Couple more. Now on your next exhale, start to engage, and we're just going to move our hips a little bit. So without gripping, we're just going to let our lower back relax to the ground. Hip bones come a little bit towards your face, and then rock back to your neutral, right? It can't be a perfectly neutral because our hips are elevated, but it's where the low back is nice and quiet, and we're not over gripped through the front. And then exhale. Imprint a little bit, almost think of rolling the ball away from you, lengthening through the front of your thighs, good, and then rock back. And it's probably going to be kind of a small move. Last one like this. And back to center. Now, if you feel like the ball is about to shoot out away from you, you can always bring it up a little bit. But if it's on your low back, bring it down towards your hips more. On your next exhale, we're just going to let the fronts of our abs sink down so we can be heavy on the ball, and we float one leg to tabletop. Little pinwheel shape. Reach that knee away as we step the foot down, toe ball heel, push it into the ground to float the other leg. Now, if your hands on your hips isn't providing enough stability, as we go back and forth, you can always bring your hands to the floor. I personally like palms to the sky. Good. Think about the thigh bone relaxing down in the socket. And notice if your spine is trying to help, right? So we want to keep our sacrum evenly weighted. So our sacrum is that kind of triangular bone in between our cheeks. And we don't want to let it all be tailbone. We don't want to let the tailbone be light either. Now, if this is where you are, fantastic. If you'd like to, you can bring both legs to tabletop. Squeeze your inner thighs together like you're trying to pop a balloon. And then we tap one toe away and then slowly switch midair as if you're dragging your knees through mud, right? So it's kind of a textured movement as opposed to just moving them through air, right? And if this feels good and you'd like a little bit more balanced challenge, bring your fingertips to the sky, straight arms. Couple more. And then when you're ready, bring both legs back. Now push one foot away from you. So your leg will be kind of straight. I don't care if it actually fully straightens. And then float it back in, other side. Now, sometimes if we fully straighten our leg and we go past the point of stability, right? Our quads, our hip flexors will take over. Maybe our back changes shape to keep us nice and stable. So as you start to get to the end range of knee extension, take it a little slower so you can really see what your body is trying to do. Two more, whether the hands are up or down is fine. Last one, each side. Good. Now they're going to move in one piece. So squeeze them together like a mermaid fin. Keep the ribs drawing gently down. Tap your toes towards the ground. And then exhale, drag the knees back up. Now you don't actually need to get your feet all the way down, especially if it doesn't feel great, right? So you can just think about the toes pointing towards the ground. If you feel like you're about to slide off of the ball, of course, have your hands down. Maybe don't go as far. We have two more. Last one. Bring your toes down, toe, ball, heel. Press your feet into the floor, lift your hips, take the ball out from beneath them, come all the way down, and you can pop the ball in between your inner thighs. So take your hands, place them on your thighs, and gently start to push into your thighs just a tiny, tiny bit to see if you can get a tiny bit of traction through your lumbar spine. Now, you can slide your hands underneath your low back just to give you a little bit of feedback. And we're just going to find our abs again and just notice if you try to like push into your hands. So on your exhale, we're just hugging our hip bones together again. Maybe press your sacrum slightly into the ground and then relax. Inhaling into your hands. Exhale, hug everything together. Two more. And as we do this, you can start squeezing the ball with your inner thighs a little bit. Last one. Now go ahead, interlace your hands behind your head, spiraling your elbows forward, starting in this neutral spine. We're going to exhale, curl your collarbones and elbows forward. And then bring your hands forward, push them into an imaginary surface, and maybe kind of shift a couple times from side to side, and then bring your fingertips up Interlace them back behind your head and slowly lower back down. Let's do a couple more. So we're maintaining neutral first as you curl forward. So sink the ribs down, let your lower back start to lower. And then if you need to, you can use your pelvis to imprint slightly as you come up, right? Don't be afraid to squeeze the prop. We have just a few more. Make sure you find all of the parts of the movement, right? A lot of times we're like, okay, I want to get to the top. But if you start your exhale before you begin your movement and find all the parts, you can find work here and then more height and then more work here. If at any point you want to keep your head supported, you can just reach one arm forward instead. And then we get one more. And push, and hands behind your head and lower. Now just feel your shoulder blades underneath you. And without coming into our chest lift yet, we're just going to lift one shoulder blade off the floor. And then back. And then other side. And notice if your body is trying to get the movement by lifting the shoulder from the arm or the rib cage, right? So we're still trying to come into a little bit of rotation. And for example, on one side, my body's like, yeah, I can rotate, no problem. And I get the movement from my rib cage. And on the other side, my shoulder really wants to help. And it takes effort to allow for that rotation. Now come into your chest lift. And we're going to find that hover again. So it's not a big rotation yet. It's just a tiny hover. So just a little baby hover of that shoulder blade off the ground. And then other side. Now, if you're like, okay, I can do this, but my hip lifts or my hip flexor grabs, squeeze the prop more. So it's just a little hover and hold. You hold. Now feel that other shoulder blade. You're holding on one side. Everybody freeze. Feel the shoulder blade. Are you flat on your shoulder blade or are you lifted a little? I want you to lift, curl a little bit and hold. Now exhale, curl a little bit higher. Yeah. And then come back to center. Then float the other shoulder blade off, barely. It's just barely moving. And then you can rotate a little bit deeper and then you can curl a little bit higher. And then come back to center. Tiny hover. Curl a little bit deeper, curl a little higher, squeeze the prop. Good. Is that more work? Yeah. Yeah. A couple more. Tiny hover, little rotation and lift. Anybody else tremble when they get to some of those parts? Yeah. Good. I'm glad I'm not alone. We get one more each side. Good. Trying to keep the opposite hip nice and heavy. Then you can come all the way down. Bring your feet closer to your sits bones. And if your toes like to point out, see if you can spiral them forward without the knees collapsing in. On your exhale, we imprint, press into your big toe mound and peel your spine up into your first bridge. Now, the first one never counts. We're just seeing where we are. So if your weight is on your neck or you're lifting from your armpits or you feel your lower back, sink your sternum away from your face. It's okay to let your hips lower. We want to push into our toes to find our underbutt and then melt and roll, letting your spine relax on the way down. And then let your spine gently peel up as if you're peeling a sticker off the wall. Still pressing into the feet. It's okay to press into the hands. Good. And then melt and roll. You guys keep going. I'm gonna watch everybody for 1 or 2. So press into the floor. Okay, your right foot is wanting to point out a little. Yeah. See if that feels a little bit different. How's that feel in your hip? Is that better, worse? Okay. All right, great. Nice. And Lisa, sink your sternum away from your face a little bit more. So tuck your tailbone towards the sky. Sink your ribs down. Yeah, good. Do you feel more of the back of your legs now? Yeah, that's where we're gonna go. And then melt and roll. Good. Good. You guys all look so good. You're welcome. And last 2. Last one. Peel it up and hold. So I want to make sure that your back is not doing the work here. So if you find yourself arching, think about sinking everything down. We're going to let one hip just start to rotate down, pointing towards the ground, and then push into that foot to lift you back to center. Other side. Push into the foot. Now, if you tend to overuse your erectors a little bit, your back might try to arch here. It also might just try to help you with balance by arching, which is why we're letting the back be very quiet. And we're just finding abs and a little bit of glute. One more each side. Come back to center and melt and roll. Now we've gone from neutral to imprint a couple times, but we're gonna do it flat and then in a chest lift. So hands on your hips if you need a guide, neutral spine, and then just gently imprint your spine and then rock back to the center. That's it. Couple more. Imprint, neutral. One more like this. Now, we do the exact same thing. Don't change a thing. If you would like to come into your chest lift, however, you can. So we're in our chest lift. We're just imprinting the exact same way and then coming back to neutral. That's it. Imprint, exhale. Think about shortening the distance between your hips and your ribs, and then rock back to neutral. Maintaining your chest lift. Don't let your head lower. Keep your head up. Head stays up. Just move your hips. Hips move towards your face. Hips move away from your face. Don't lower your head. Keep the head up. Yeah. Good. And now notice if you're squeezing your butt to get there or using your abs to get there. Now, if this is where you are, fantastic. If you want to bring your legs to tabletop and imprint your spine to get your knees towards your face and then come to neutral, that's great. So you're in neutral, in tabletop. Imprint to initiate the curl towards your face and then back. Couple more. Ab. Yeah. Relax your butt. If your glutes are like doing all the work, try to relax them a little bit. They should help you stabilize, but it's definitely your obliques, your rectus abdominis doing the movement. If your body tries to get the work from your hip flexors, just know it's okay for them to work. We just are trying to get the abs to do a little bit more as well. Last one, hold, hold, hold. Go ahead, come back, feet down, take the ball to the side. Extend your feet. Now, if you came into a big Arched position, see if you can sink to neutral. And we're just going to imprint. If imprinting is really hard with legs extended, bend your knees a fraction of an inch and see if that makes it easier. We're going to do some roll-ups. So if you have a prop you like for roll-ups, great. You're going to let your arms go overhead. Maintain your neutral spine, or at least your neutral pelvis as you start to lift. And then as you peel your spine up, you're going to imprint. Corinne, that was great. Yeah, it was really smooth. Good. And good, Shannon. Yes, you all look amazing. And we're going to slowly roll down. Good. And exhale. Let your spine respond. Yeah, good. If you use your breath a little bit more, it'll help. Okay, yeah. And also, it's great to use your legs, right? So if at any point you're like, I feel like I'm getting stuck, you can either climb up your legs. Yeah. Good. Good. That was good, but you didn't need that much momentum. I know you didn't. I was watching you in the mirror before. Yeah. Good. So use your breath. Exhale. Hey, everybody, we're going to try something together. Just because I think a lot of us are holding our breath today. So come on up. We're going to hold our breath on the way down. We're going to hold our breath on the way up. And then we're going to make our breath exhale on the way down. So inhale, hold. Okay, not so bad. Now on the way up. See how much more work it is, right? Okay, now I want you to do like a big exhale, like a dragon breath. Or one of those Alvino, like ah. So big up. Yeah. See how much easier that was, you guys? Good. We're gonna do just a couple more. Yeah, it was better though. It was better. Good. Nancy, so good. Yeah. No. And nice job, you guys. Yeah, good. All right. So now we're going to have our hands behind our thighs and just shoulder blades draw down. We're going to curl our tailbone towards our face. Maybe your arms straighten, maybe they don't. And we're going to dive forward and you can restack. Good. Now, if you tend to restack from just the rib cage and you feel tension there, see if you can roll your hip bones forward, let your sits bones root down, and just stack with ease, right? Good. Yeah. And then dive forward and restack. Nice. You all look like you're waiting for something, like for the other shoe to drop. Well, guess what? You have options. Option one is staying right here, right? Option two is doing a half roll back. So you can just bring it back and then fold forward. So it's a little bit more work because we've shortened the range and we've shortened the lever of your leg, right? Good. And of course, if you want, you can bring a leg with you. So I like to think of creating a tiny nugget shape. And if you're like, I don't know if my leg's gonna, you can always use the ball. It's much harder if you use the ball. You won't be able to go as far. Yeah. One more. On this side, yeah. Good. And then other side. Yeah. Once again, you're creating that tiny nugget shape and we're trying to maintain it as much as possible, right? If you're like, why is this so much harder? Well, it just is. Mostly because you don't have the weight away from you, right? Yeah. Two more. Yeah. Well, you're in hip flexion. Yeah. Okay. And down. Good. We're going to curl back down. One bone at a time. Yeah. Nice job, you guys. Bring your feet closer to you. Reach your fingertips towards your feet. Gently think about your ab muscles, drawing your ribs together rather than like closing them like a lid. We're just going to start pumping our arms. And notice if you can use your breath and your muscles to help stabilize your spine in this supine hundreds. Now, maybe you're like, okay, this is where I am today. Great. Otherwise, you can always bring your legs to tabletop. You can always curl your chest forward. And if you want, you can always extend your legs away from you. If you're reaching them away, think of them pushing into something to help leverage you up, right? If you're just straightening your legs, it's a lot harder. It's more quad and hip flexor, right? So it's a reach. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. One more. And bring your knee in towards your chest, just one. And then switch legs. Now, as we do this, we're trying to pull the knee in with our lat and also push up with our hamstring and glute, right? Good. Now, you can tap the toe down. You can also have your head down. So if your neck is like, I don't particularly love having my head up without support, okay, head down, no problem. You got one more each side. And then we can bring our hands behind our head and we rotate so we're crisscross. Good, slow and steady wins the race. So we're gonna think 3 to 4 counts. 3, 2, 1, hold. 3, 2, 1, hold. Now, if you'd like more excitement, you press your elbow and your knee together. And then press your elbow and knee. How's everybody doing? Great? Yeah, okay. If you're like, well, I need my head down, bring a leg up, take the opposite hand, push into the leg. You'll still get that extra connection. Good. Just using the heel of the hand. You have just a couple more. Good. And 2. Last 1 each side. Hug your knees in towards your chest and gently rock from side to side. Now go ahead, bring your arms either to a T or goal post, whatever feels better for your shoulder, and then your legs can come back to their tabletop. If your body is done with tabletop, you can always just tap your toes down. We're gonna do spine twist supine. So one hip lifts while one hip lowers. I'm gonna show both versions. And then exhale, drag your ribs back. Hips follow the ribs. Hips don't initiate. So if your feet are down, make sure you're not going into a huge range of motion, right? Because it's about ab engagement rather than just a big spine twist. Keeping both shoulders down, hip lengthens away from the face. If your legs are up, same thing, but I want you to imagine that you have a gem in between your knees that you don't want to drop. So whatever your birthstone is, you've got that in between your knees, don't drop it. Good. Using your breath here. Good. And again. Last one, each direction. Good. And you can hug your knees into your chest again. gently rocking from side to side. Go ahead, bring your hands either to your shins or behind your thighs. Press your thighs into your hands. Lift your chest. So we're just gonna start a little pill bug rock, right? Until you come all the way up. Good. Now bring yourself to the front of your mat so you have lots of space. And real talk, we're not gonna roll onto our neck or head, okay? So nod your chin, round your back, lift your heels so your toes are just barely on the ground. Now, float your toes up, and maybe you pill bug rock, relaxing the shoulders down. Maybe you roll like a ball. You inhale, exhale. Okay. Now, I just heard the sound I used to make, which is kind of a thunk. Look at your feet and see if it helps, right? So roll, don't worry about how far you're going. Yeah, good. Now, if your back doesn't like this, instead you can be here, no problem. Or you can just do roll-ups, okay? Good. Good, good. Yeah, now if you're like, this is cool, but I want more work. Extend your legs into open leg rocker. Yeah. Yeah. Good. If you need to bend your knees, it's okay. Yeah. And it's a little bit trickier because the weight wants to send you back farther, right? There's like, you have to really control it. If you're like, okay, I think I got this, but I want to challenge myself more, you bring the ball in between your feet. And you can also try letting go. And then we just do circus tricks all day. Last two. That's why it's kind of like an exploration, right? Yeah. And come all the way up. Nice job, you guys. Bring your feet together, relax over your legs. It was perfect. It was perfect. Now you can sit upright with your legs extended, or if crisscross applesauce feels better, no problem. First, we're just going to rotate to one side and see where we go. Okay, and then we get to rotate to the other side, see where we go. Notice if your body is like more restricted on one side. No problem. Now, to the first side, hold, big inhale. Slow exhale. See if the slow exhale allows you to get a tiny bit more range. And then other side. Yeah, almost like the exhale is helping you wring out your rib cage, right? And then first side, see where you go. Maybe you go a little farther than you did before. And then other side. And so a lot of times we're tempted to kind of pull ourselves into a huge range. We want to see if we can find a range that when on our next exhale, we take our hands away, we can maintain. Right? So we turn, inhale, exhale, see if we can maintain it, right? So it's okay to use your hands to get there. And Lisa, relax your shoulders, it'll help, I promise. Yeah, so you can absolutely like protect it by like hugging and be here. So, yeah, yeah. No, that looks better though, because it was trying to help. Yeah, good. Last one each side. Good, nice job. Now we're going to come onto all fours. We're going to use the ball to get a little bit of rotation through just the rib cage. So we just got full spinal rotation, and now we're going to use the prop. Now you don't have to use the prop here. You can always just extend with the arm. I find that I get more glide and ease of motion if I have the prop to help me. So just in a quadruped, exhale, push the ball away, let the elbow bend. Try to keep the rotation more in the rib cage than the low back. One way to do that is a nice wide stance with your knees, and then come back. Good. Rib cage rotation is super important because without it, we bring excessive rotation into like our L4, L5, S1, so the bottom of our spine. Last one like this. Good. And then we get to do the other side. So just let the ball help guide you. If you find yourself coming into like a side bend or a hip drop, just be aware and realize that, oh, maybe that's just how my body strategizes, right? Couple more. And 2. And last 1. Come back to center, hands underneath your shoulders. If it feels better to have them slightly in front, that is okay. We are going to still try to push down into your pointer fingers, so it's not just all weight on your wrists. Lift your rib cage a little, slide one foot out. Then we're coming into a plank if it's appropriate for your body today. If it's not, knees down, no problem. Good. And if a full plank or a knee plank isn't, you can always be in quadruped still and just slide one leg out at a time. Good. Jennifer? Yeah, there. Perfect. No, it was actually just like here that was trying to help, but that looks great. Yeah. Good. And you can bend one knee underneath you and reach it back if you like. Good. Couple more. 2. Last 1. Knees down. Press yourselves into your rest position. Gorgeous. Hands up and over to one side. Push your hips away. And then we get to do the other direction. Let's come onto our side real quickly. And we have options. You can, of course, be on your forearm. Think of a side plank, or you can use the ball as a pillow and be nice and flat. Now, first, just kind of find a relaxed position, and then we're going to find where we're going to stay. So think of your bottom rib gently lifting as if I wanted to slide a sheet of paper under it. You just make it kind of easy for me. Now unwind your hips. So your hip bone is pointing forward a little. It's like you got gunslinger hips. And they both want to point the same way. And then squeeze your heels together, lift one knee, and then bring it back down. Does that feel okay on that side? Okay. So I don't mind if your knee isn't coming up really high. I'd prefer you to think about the thigh bone just stirring in the socket or spiraling in the socket like you're screwing in a light bulb. The glute should be directing the movement. So if you feel it in the front pocket of your hip, that could indicate that maybe your hip is tight. One way you can get a little bit of more movement if your hip is tight, lift your heels and see if that is more effective. Yeah. And that looks great. If you want to keep them up, but you want support, put them on the yoga block. Yeah. Good. Give me just a couple more like this. Yeah, does that feel better? We got 3 and 2. Last 1. Now go ahead, extend that top leg out. Imagine that somebody is near you and you want to like touch them with your foot. So you're kind of reaching out through the hip socket, out from the rib cage. Good. And then drag the leg behind you just a little bit without letting the back move. Yeah. Now we float or brush the leg up and down a little bit. So back behind you, Stephanie. Hold there, rotate your top hip bone forward. Good. Now keep the leg right where it is. There. Gorgeous. Sita, when you come up, bring your leg back just a little bit. Yeah. Got more glute? Yeah. Good. Nice job, everybody. Think about paintbrushing the foot up the wall, right? So it's not so much trying to get to the sky as it is reaching away. One reason we don't want to move the hips is we're trying to, one, access the glute and get a little bit of thigh glide. But if the hips start moving, other muscles are helping, right? Which isn't bad, it's just different. And then we get to do tiny little circles. Think of dragging the foot back in space. Good. And it doesn't really matter which direction you're going because we're going to do the other direction. We have 3, 2, and then reverse directions. Good. We have 5 and 4. How's that glute feeling? Good. Yeah, same. And then you can take a break if you need to. Otherwise, we're going to hip hinge. So flex the foot. Allow the thigh bone to slide back in the socket as the foot comes forward, and then drag the leg back through wet sand. Now, could you keep your foot on the floor and do it this way? Absolutely. And in fact, if you have a tight TFL, this might be harder, right? Because you're putting stretch on that muscle. If your back is moving, see if you can think about that breath and don't bring your leg quite as far forward. Start with it small because maybe it's a hip flexor or hamstring flexibility issue. Maybe it's a motor control issue. And 2, last 1. Guess what? We get to do the other side. So go ahead, roll on over. You guys okay? Everybody's just like, once again, you can push down into that arm and have that kind of side plank moment, or you can lie down. So lift the ribs just a little bit. Think about that hip bone pointing forward, making sure that we're in a neutral and not tucked position. And then the thigh bone just spirals in the socket. Just see what your body says today. Maybe it's like, I don't really have much range, and so this is hard for me. Feel free to lift your feet. You can always prop them up. So for example, I have a tight muscle in the front of my hip. It's called the TFL. And it's an internal rotator. So if my feet are down, I don't get much external rotation. So if I start in the internal rotation, my glute gets to work a little bit in a bigger range of motion without having to fight that tight muscle, right? So that's why sometimes if we have a tight TFL, lifting the feet can be a lot more effective with clamshells. 2 more. Last one. Bring it down, extend the top leg out. Extend it so far out, you reach it towards the opposite wall. Now, we just paintbrush the foot up and down. Good. And once again, If your foot is coming forward, drag it back in space a little. Yeah. Good. Just at the top, bring it, yep, there you go. Much better, Nancy. Yeah. Stephanie, that looks pretty good. It looks like you're trying to use your back a little. So lift your bottom rib. Look at me. Yeah, up. Yeah. So instead of here, and then push the foot away from you. Just let it start to glide. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because it's a little tight. You can also externally rotate a little. Yeah. There you go. And then relax 5%. Then relax 5%. Yes, there. Good. Couple more, and feel free to bring your leg back in space just a teeny bit. Yeah. Friend, that looks great. Yeah. Shannon, bring your foot back. Yep. How'd you know? How'd you know what I was going to tell you? Good. 2. And then we get to bring it forward and back. So we're going to bring it forward and back. Don't worry. I know we are going to do the little circles. I just couldn't remember if we did them in between or after this. So now maybe you bring your foot down and drag it back. Maybe you keep it elevated. We're just trying to allow the thigh bone to move freely in the socket. Yeah. Couple more. Gorgeous, everybody. Yes. 2. Last one. Hold it back just a little bit. We do little circles. Good. Nice. Drag it back in space. Keep it slightly behind you. It might be. Jennifer, bring your foot back in space more. Other foot, top foot. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Good. And then reverse for 4 and 3, 2, last 1. Nice job. Go ahead, come onto your stomach. Now, if when you're here, your head kind of drops down, it's not comfortable on your neck, you can always use the pillow underneath your forehead. We're going to suction cup our hands to the ground, drag the elbows down. So it's like you're doing a lat pull. So drawing the armpits down too. Push your hands and elbows into the ground to get the tiniest little bit of extension. So it's more like you're being shot out of a cannon rather than lifting up. Elbows too. Yeah, all the way down. Good. Yeah. Now squeeze the glutes and then inhale. You're pushing down. Exhale, float your hands. Just see what you feel and then come down. So we're trying to bypass the erectors to start. So hands and elbows down, push to come up a little bit. Yeah. And then lift the arms. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good. Couple more. Yep. So push. Yeah. So lift less with your neck. Like look like there's a cute little ladybug in front of you. You want to be like, hey friend. I don't know if people like ladybugs. And last one. Good. Now bring your hands forward. You can suction cup them to the ground. And push more with one of the hands as you squeeze the opposite glute. And then other side. Push, squeeze. Good. Push and squeeze. And if you feel your hip bone really diving forward or your back feels like it's working, don't try to lift your foot. Try to just squeeze the glute. Good. 2 more. Now, If you're like, yeah, that's great, I want to lift the opposite arm and leg, you are welcome to. Good. Couple more. And good. Nancy, relax your shoulders down. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. No. If that feels good and you'd like to hover everything and inhale and exhale, fantastic. If you're like, I feel like I'm hitting the rocky waves, you can always come back to this. 2 and 1. Hands can come down. We're going to push ourselves into our rest position. Hands up and over to one side. Press your hips away. And then we get to do the other side. And then we get to come to standing. So however you need to, we're coming to standing. I'm going to roll all the way up. Good. And it wouldn't be class without a little bit of balance work. So if you're like, whew, I need a second, take one. Otherwise, we're going to bring our heel to toe like we're on a tightrope. Yeah. Now, most of you are on the squishy mat, which is just an added balance challenge, right? So if being here, you're like, oh, that's a lot, come onto the floor. Yeah, good. Now, also, feel free to always like give yourself a little bit more stimulus if you need to. We're going to close our eyes. Also, first line of defense is opening your eyes. So if you feel really wobbly, open them. It's fine. Yeah. And then if this feels good and you would like to, we're going to keep our eyes closed, but we're going to look up and down. So just nodding your chin and down. If you feel that kind of wobble of your feet and your ankles, that's just called noise. It's normal. It's just your proprioceptors figuring out where you are in space. So one way to help with that is push your feet into the ground, actually feel your feet underneath you. And then open your eyes. We get to switch sides. Boom, boom. Now the good news is this might be your easier side. The other good news is this might be your more exciting side. And then you know, right? So just see where you are. Feel like you can close your eyes to see how your body feels. If you need to, you open your eyes. If you're like, well, I can't quite close them both, wink. And then wink with the other eye. Or if you're like, well, I can wink with one eye, but the other eye won't, you can close it, you know, yeah. And then if you're ready, you can take your head up and down. Right? And maybe if you're like going really fast, you feel really unstable, slow it down. Couple more. Yeah. Second line of defense, grab onto the TRX strap. Last one, and come back to center. Now feet together, pushing them into the ground. Think about your inner thighs as well. Lift one foot. Maybe you keep that toe tap down. Maybe you keep it elevated. Yeah, gorgeous, gorgeous. And then if that feels pretty easy, look over your shoulder. Hey, and then you can look over your other shoulder. Yeah. Beautiful. You all look so good. If you're like, well, this is easy, close your eyes. Right? Like, yeah. One more each direction, and then we get to do the other side. Balance is so multifaceted. It's so cool, you guys. Yeah. Nice. Couple more. Last set. and then back. Yeah. Go ahead, roll your shoulders up, down, and back a couple times. Flip your palms to the sky, open your collarbones, and then relax down and give yourselves a round of applause. Nice job today, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.